don't think they'd actually played. It was just more of an idea at that point.
Yep, 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, I booked their first tour, I believe, and I think Ruben might have booked their second tour, which I think I went on that one as well. So neither one of those turned out very good, other than just having a good time driving around being broke. But those guys are so animated that, you know, even if you're broke, you're having a good time.
So let's see. So what were those tours like? I mean, like,
I just remember sitting in the van a lot, waiting for a show, and then a show would happen, and there wouldn't really be anybody there. You know, typical first tour kind of crap. You know?
Or fifth tour, depending
Yeah.
on... Sorry.
and you were already touring at that time.
Yeah, but not for very long.
Yeah.
Like maybe a couple of years. I mean, our tours Unwound's tours weren't very good either at that point. So I think we'd only had a couple of 7 inches out. We were doing, like, we'd have good shows on the West Coast, like good shows like, you know, fun house parties. Those kind of good shows. But yeah, those, you know, they had those too. I just, you know, I remember on one of the tours we were in Pomona or Claremont or something playing in this coffee house. And Jared had, Scotty had these cymbals that were just like, he had a pile of cymbals like on one stand that were just, they're all broken and crappy, and there's like little shards of whatever brass or whatever they use for cymbals sticking out. And like Jared had like fallen into the drum set and like cut his hand open really bad, like not bad enough to like go to the hospital or anything, but he was bleeding all over the place. So I played Blue Blood on the last song, and Jared just sang, just rolling around the floor and throwing blood everywhere. That was a good show.
What bands did you guys play with on that first tour?
Oh shit, I don't even remember at this point. I have no clue.
And
I think that show was actually with Man as a Bastard. So it seemed like we always played with Man as a Bastard in Claremont or Pomona. What was it? What about that Jared bass story?
Okay. So right. So the bass story is that somebody, I don't know who, maybe he said, maybe he didn't, told him like, you know, he wasn't playing anything, but he wanted to be a band, and they were like, you know, they were older, like upperclassmen to him, and so I got this idea that he's kind of like looking up to them a little bit, you know, and they were like, he was like this young guy, and they were like, we need a bass player in our band, you know, you should buy a bass, and you should come play bass in our band. And he's like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. You know, these older guys are asking me to jam with them. That sounds sweet. So he goes and like gets the money from his like parents, from his mom, and then they had one practice, and then they're like, okay, you know, we'll call you or whatever, and they somehow got him to leave the bass there. And then they were like, because they actually were intending for someone else to use it, and then he was like saying that was you.
Oh. Really?
Do you remember that?
I don't remember that at
I
all.
wish I had that transcript printed out. I have that that interview typed out.
I can't imagine who that would have been unless it was Justin and Brant. Could have been. But I've always had my own bass, so.
He said it took like a year to get it back. I don't know. I'll have to. When I find that transcript, I'll email it to you. So.
Okay. I don't recall that. So.
I have another story that suddenly came to mind. And it was, I heard from somebody that Carp wasn't very good when they started out. They're kind of butt rock and just, I don't know, didn't sound that good, like most bands. But I heard they used to tempt people to come to the shows with donuts. They used to put out.
That would, them. It wouldn't surprise me if they tempted people to come to their shows with donuts. I mean, we did all kinds of stupid shit like that. Like one of Justin's bands would, you know, inevitably would have a food fight, you know, with hot dogs or donuts or I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me at all. If that's I don't remember that specifically because I went to all their shows anyway.
You didn't have to be tempted with donuts.
No. I was already full of donuts probably by the time we got there.
Donuts are good.
So you guys were like hanging out, like playing poker together or something? Like,
Me and Jared used to live together Yeah, we'd have poker parties every weekend. I would smoke everybody. I love playing poker. Yeah, we used to just, there'd be like 8 of us sitting around, like we'd take like, say one of these cabinets and like put it down in my bedroom, and everyone would sit around and use that as a table, and everyone would buy in. We used to play craps too. I had a craps table for a while. That was always fun. And just sit around drinking, listening to music, and playing cards.
What was how did the three of them like kind of interact? What was their relationship like with each other?
They it's like brothers. I mean, they
You should start with like Carp or
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, Carp would interact with each other like, I don't know, like brothers in the way that, you know, they'd either just be at each other's throat or like best friends, like, you know, acting like monkeys, you know, just like, you know, just, because they're just, yeah, like I, you know, said earlier, they're animated, you know, just, they put them, even if there's nobody to put a show on for, they're putting on a show. They've always been that way.
So
as long as I can remember, you know.
So after, so you guys recorded together the demo after the tours,
No,
or
well,
I guess tell the story of the recording the demo.
I think the demo for that came with Punk and My Vitamins, came before their tours, because I think that the reason that because the original demo came with 2 songs, and that just came with the fanzine. But then I was selling so many of them, we decided to do like just a cassette only release, and that's how I started Punk and My Vitamins, like the record label, and I think that's what we used on the first tour, was just that 8-song cassette. And that was, I think we recorded that at the State Theater, you know, and just in one of the theaters.
And how was that? Like, what was that experience like?
That was awesome. I was a projectionist and an assistant manager at the State Theater, so we had after hours access. So after all the movies were done, we'd go in the middle of the night, set everything up, and play music and do the recording stuff.
Jared was saying something about like they didn't ever have a tuner, so they were always like tuning to each other, but the notes that they were tuning to were constantly like dropping over time.
Oh yeah, I remember talking to them about their tuning. Like they kept tuning lower and lower, and it just got to where it just sounded like a mess, you know. And I was like, you should tune up a little bit. And you know, I remember Jared telling me like, it won't sound heavy enough if we tune up to E or whatever. So they tuned down to like B or something like that. It's something like ridiculously low, like the bass strings would be flapping. Didn't sound heavy at all, it just sounded like a mess.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You should, you touched on how their relationship was, but that was obviously earlier on. It obviously started to change as time went on. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I don't know if I want to talk about that very much, because without, you know, talking about people's personal problems, you know, their relationships obviously did change because of personal problems, and you know, people having trouble on tour, and you know.
That was pretty big.
Thunder?
No, that was some sort of explosive.
That's Tumwater for you.
Nice.
But yeah, you know, I'd rather them explain that themselves,
totally.
you know, just because I saw it obviously from an outside point of view. Mm-hmm. You know, their relationships obviously were changing, and that they were just having a harder time, like, getting along or making the band function, you know.
That was much later.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, so, I remember I wanted to put out a live Carp record on Punk and My Vitamins, and so I bought them a 4-track to take on tour so they could record their shows. And I don't even think they made it through the end of that tour, and I think they left the 4-track in Texas somewhere. I was so bummed, not just to lose my 4-track, but to, you know, they didn't even record any of the shows. I think Jared got back and was like, yeah, it wasn't even worth it. So.
What tour was that?
I think it was their last tour
So after Japan and
I believe so.
after self-titled,
I
whatever.
think so. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. So what about so what? Oh, you. What about Tumwater T-Birds? We should talk about that single. You helped record that with Tim, right?
Yeah. Me and Tim recorded the Tumwater T-Birds 7-inch in the basement of the Red House in Olympia. That's that was like the first set of recording equipment that I bought. And Tim had some stuff, but I had an 8-track and a board that I bought from Pat Malley. And so we set it up in Tim's room, and we used it to record that, which is the one that Justin has at his house.
Cool.
Where we're staying tonight, so we should remember to film that.
That's true.
The
What a-
haunted.
I think that Tim has that original 8-track tape. He must have it because I don't have it, and I pretty much have everything we've ever done.
Cool. Well, let's look at some of these things. You can just show them to the. You want to just
Oh.
look at them yourself, explain them,
just
and you
like-
can kind of show them to the
I
camera.
don't know, stuff that. This is from one of their tours. I didn't go on this tour with them. Just old carp flyer from I don't know, Juanita's in Chico, California. God, look at that picture. That was so bad. This is one of their tour itineraries. And I think this is the one that Ruben booked for him in '95. But I went on this tour with them, so. This is the cover for the 7-inch that I put out, the Tumwater T-Birds one.
You want to talk a little bit about the artwork with that thing?
Jared did this. This is basically just the Tumwater T-Birds logo, for the football team. And then we took the actual yearbook picture of the football team out of there and put our heads on different people. But Jared came up with that. I think Jared, yeah, I think later on Jared did most of their artwork. This is just the Kill Rockstars 7-inch. I don't know why I have this without a 7-inch. I probably have it in there somewhere. This is from one of our art classes, the silk screening class that Scotty made me a silk screen of a cow smoking a pipe and wrote tobacco on it. That's when I was I was full on into smoking and wrote a column in my fanzine called Nicoteenager. So I don't know. We just did stupid crap like Dunkin' Donuts dollars for each other. Try to cash them in at Dunkin' Donuts, and I guess it never worked. But definitely donuts were a big part of our high school experience. There's a picture of Unwound that Scotty did on a computer. If you're gonna have to get a close up of that. That's a picture of Chris sitting on Santa Claus's lap, and he made Santa Claus wear his sunglasses.
Adorable.
Sorry. Oops.
Oh, you got you all bordered up there.
If you,
Can you just,
oh,
can you just
sorry.
Put the lamp up just a second. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt
No, it's
or
all right.
bother you. I need to find a different pair of types for Lola. Those ones Laura sent are way too small.
see if you were feeling better, you should come down here and tell Scotty stories.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
Scotty stories,
Yeah.
like,
Can you
get
send me
out
that?
now!
Oh
Phone
yeah.
number one.
Oh, that you should
Yeah,
tell
you
that
should tell
story.
them. That'd be excellent. We need more stuff about Scotty.
But you're doing, well, I have to get Lola ready to go.
It'll only take a second to tell that story.
I don't remember exactly what the sign said.
So you told it yesterday or the day before, really good.
Oh, when I told him the memory foam mattress?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, is it still going?
Yes.
This is just another flyer. I used to have so many more flyers. I don't know whatever happened to them, but Bikini Kill and Carp. This is like right when they first started too, and this is in Portland at the X-Ray. That was a great show. All those shows were fun back then, like the basement shows. We would, just seemed like there was always a show going on. So you're either playing a show or you're going to a show, and everyone's just acting like idiots, having a good time. I have this Mustache is Wild promo thing from K. Just a picture of this ashtray that Unwound used for one of our 7-inches, the center artwork.
You have the actual ashtray, right?
It's still here. It hasn't been cleaned in a long time.
Is that it right there?
That's it. Yeah.
Oh shit.
That was yeah, I had to clean it up for that one. That was the centerpiece on our gravity.
You're not
set.
smoking right now. It'd be good to
Oh yeah, light one up.
light up, dude.
Oh.
Such an enabler.
So
I don't even. You know what? I don't even know if Scotty gave me that ashtray. He might have just got it for himself and brought it over to my house to show me, and then left it there, and then I just ended up having it.
So
But yeah, then there's this. This is a
Yeah,
seven-
that's the jam.
oh, that's the 7-inch that I put out.
I got it lined up really well.
Oh.
I can just
Oh no, that's fine.
matter. Go ahead.
That's a 7-inch that I first put out. It wasn't their first 7-inch, but it was the first 7-inch that I put out. That was the first one out of the box of test pressings. Had to have it framed.
What is the cover of that? Is that the electrocuted? one?
No, that's the T-Birds one.
Oh, that
This
okay.
one here,
That was
yeah.
your first one.
But yeah, that's other than tapes that I'd have to go through. That's kind of all my stuff I found in my box. I thought I had more pictures actually.
Oh well.
well, you're dragging your.
Oh, that's professional, isn't it? Oh, it's on the other side of my bed, like next to the TV, on the floor. Okay.
This is not tight enough. Can you? It's the bottom one actually that should be.
Oh,
Slide it up and then yeah, there you go.
I've been keeping those clothes in there because those are the ones that fit. Okay, it's kind of dusty. This is the first like promo photo that I think Ruben took a picture of them sitting outside of I don't know if you can get that very well. Sitting outside of what's now the Indian restaurant downtown Olympia. Used to be a place called Men's Market, where all the street urchins would, they would bum change, stuff. So one of them, like Jared's sitting there playing a guitar, Scott's acting like the big businessman, and Chris is over here bumming change from someone. So
We actually have another from that session
oh really?
in our possession. It's even funnier. Chris is like bumming change off Scott, and like Jared's in the background playing his
oh, it's
guitar.
not in here.
Where is it?
That's a good question.
And then
Dude.
It's a problem.
one of our mutual friends had passed away. I think Scotty had already passed away at that point, but this friend of ours, Michael, we had a party for Michael one day before he passed away, and him and Scotty were really good friends, and I was really good friends with both of them. And so anyway, at Michael's funeral, his sister asked me to speak. So I spoke, and then they had this table, and I had these pictures of Michael, and one of them was with Scotty, and it was like, oh, I have to have that picture.
Oh.
So can you make me copies of this picture?
Can you hold that one up a little?
Oh. And I asked Michael's sister if I could have a copy of this because I had a picture of him and Scotty, two of my best friends, and so she said she'd make me a copy, but then apparently she wasn't going to, so she just dropped it off of where I worked. The actual picture that was there. So
Wow.
that's my little shrine up there for, this is only Scotty stuff up there, but
We'll shoot that next. Alright, well, we got all the memorabilia. We get that shot with the ashtray that I was talking about. I'll just wait for you to ash it.
okay.
It's called Drama, dude. We got it. Give me a big star.
All right, so let's see.
Is there anything you feel like you should touch on? Anything about the Carp legacy that needs to be included that only could come from?
I don't know. I guess I don't know. I feel like Jared has really really accomplished more than he ever expected to, and I just admire him so much because I mean they grew up listening to Melvins, and got pegged in that for a long time, and so I think it's cool that he's playing with the Melvins now, but but I also think it's really cool that after Scotty passed away, it didn't stop him from being creative and the person that he was meant to be, So he played with Big Business and the Whip, and I guess Scotty was in the Whip, but it didn't stop him, or it seemed like it would have stopped a lot of people. So I was kind of admired him. I admired him for that, just because I thought, that must have been a huge blow for him, So to keep on playing was pretty admirable.
Yeah, what was that like? That period like after, self-titled and after going to Japan and coming back, and having it apparent that things weren't working out, or whatever. Like that whole kind of period where you realize that that you're not going to be playing. The things that are changing within the band, that you're not going to be playing with your friends anymore or something.
Well, I mean, I think Scotty and Jared were fed up with Chris, and so I think that once they started the Whip and Joe started playing with them, I think Chris was really bummed out about that they didn't ask him to play again or something. I didn't really hang out with him all that much at that point, and I know that Scotty moved to Seattle and then Jared moved to Seattle. So then I really didn't hang out with them. So a lot of that I probably didn't see much of. You could tell the tension was there, but it's kind of one of those things you didn't talk about or didn't really ask about.
When was the last time you saw Chris?
I saw Chris. I don't know. It's been a while. I don't know. Last time I saw Chris was probably at least a year or two ago.
I mean, not connected to anything like using or something like that, but what do you think that was he going through that was difficult for him, or what it kind of was going on, the impetus?
It seemed like Chris's life was always just kind of there was always just something fucked up about it. I mean, he moved out of his parents' house. He didn't, didn't seem like he got along with his parents all that well, even when we were kids, So that probably didn't help much. I hate using that as an excuse for anything, but I think not having Carp there was probably a pretty big blow for him as well.
Oh, that's an interesting point. So you think after Carp kind of going through what it went through, in the end accelerated some of these things for him?
Yeah, it definitely accelerated the problems that Chris was having. So
yeah, could you say the breakup accelerated?
Well, the breakup definitely accelerated the problems he was having, because it was probably more of his family than his actual family was. But like I said, I hate using that as an excuse for anything, but because he's a great musician, he could, Chris could easily find people to play with if he, had his shit together. And it seems like he does sometimes, and then sometimes it doesn't.
What do you think his like as a friend of his? What did it seem like his primary like kind of drive was?
Playing music was Chris's drive, I think. Even when we were kids. I mean, especially like when we were in high school. I mean, he saw me and Justin and Brant playing music, and I think that was help give him some of that drive. Like, oh, I want to do that too. You know, because that's how I did it, by going to shows and watching bands. It was just, you know, having friends that did it made it easier.
Mike was kind of talking about this when we just talked to them. Like, but what do you think people have to do as they grow up, like touring and playing, to like kind of stay, you know, to like keep the shit together?
Stay grounded.
Yeah, or just like not go. I mean, because Jared kind of was able to do it,
Yeah.
apparently, you know,
Yeah.
and you know Scott didn't end up having the opportunity to do it
Right.
the rest of the way. But I mean, in your opinion, like, what do you think, like, you know, the pressures are, and what do you think you go through, and what could you do to?
You know, that's a hard question for me, or you know, specifically just because, you know, I had my problems like that too. You know, where like, okay, my daughter was born, and so I didn't want to tour anymore, and so once I didn't have Unwound as like such a central focus in my life, it was easy for me to like lose my shit a lot, you know. And I'm sure that Chris had that problem too, because what else are you gonna do? So it's definitely a hard thing to stay grounded. Some people have easier time with it than others, you know. So I definitely, you know kind of somewhat how Chris feels.
It's a classic thing, and I'm really interested in talking about it because it's a thing that applies to everyone that cares about anything. It doesn't have to be people that are just concerned with playing music. You know, it's like about like loving something and following it without like getting lost. And
Right.
being able to, like you were saying, that you really admire Jared because somehow he was able to stay connected to that thing within himself.
Yeah, well, and I think that Jared knew that that's what was grounding him, so he didn't stop. You know, whereas like Chris probably stopped for a while, hoping that things would get better. But that's just me speculating. You know, Jared just didn't stop. So I think that's, you know, I think it's you get rusty if you stop. You know, it's a hard thing, like especially when you started doing as well as Carp did. You know, the idea of like starting over seemed like a real pain in the ass. It's like it's like, where do you start? Because you don't remember how you know, especially when you're in a band like Carp, you grew up with each other and just playing music just happened. It's not like they had to go find people to play with. You know, so for some people it was easier than others, you know.
Right, and then I see what you're saying, because then going back and trying to get back on board is like fabricating
Yeah.
a situation that was never fabricated in the first place.
Well, and I think that Jared had an easier time with it too, because he was like, by the time Carp broke up, he was so much more of the front man than Chris was. So he could just kind of keep the Carp thing going, even though it wasn't Carp, you know, and people would still see that part of it. Whereas I don't think Chris was probably able to do that. I don't know, you know, if he tried harder, maybe that would have panned out for him. But I think that, you know, just with the circumstances, it just people kind of saw the problems that were happening, and just it wasn't as much of an option for him.
Do you mean in a sense of being able to like stay socially connected?
Yeah, with the group of people that you were already connected with. It's like, oh, Jared's got a new band. You know, let's go see him. And like almost instantly they went, you know, not that they retained all of their crowd, but, you know, the people would follow him. And it seems to me like they tended to follow Jared more so than Chris. Like, not that Chris's bands weren't good after that. People were just like, you know, what are we gonna see this time? You know,
Well, am I right in saying that he was like doing like, because it's like less of the social work?
Yeah, or just became less of like the focal point of Carp. You know, Chris just didn't seem as reliable musically. You know, he's still a great musician, but it's probably just how people perceived it.
What do you think Chris brought to that band?
Well, I mean, he was just as much of a part of it as anybody else. I think it just seemed like as the band went on, he became less and less of a contributor. Not so much. I guess not that he wasn't. I don't know.
Well, I mean, even just stylistically, like as a guitar player, like what do you feel
I'm
like?
terrible at answering those kind of questions.
Because I kind of have my own opinions about it, just from seeing Big Business and seeing that happen. Is that like it seemed like, and I don't know if this is from being like starting out and like writing different kinds of riffs when you're younger or whatever, but I noticed that in Big Business, it seems like the melody and the movement of the songs is contained within the vocals.
Yeah.
And I didn't find that to be the case with Carp at all. I mean,
Right.
there was melody and movement in the vocals for sure, but there was a lot of it built into the structure of the songs,
song.
and they have like a lower, like just a kind of a more of a solid and slow swagger underneath it. And I always was curious if that was Chris.
I don't know. It's been a long time since I've even listened to Carp, actually. So, other than on the jukebox at Brotherhood, I don't know. To me, I could always tell which songs like started out with one of Chris's riffs or one of Jared's riffs. So that's why it always seemed pretty equal. You know, as far as especially the earlier stuff, you know, it was a lot more equal. And then as it became, I don't know, as they went on, it seemed to be like Jared tried harder or tried more, or brought more to the table than Chris did.
What was the difference between their riffs like?
That's hard to explain. For me, just from being a musician and listening to music, to me, you can always, or I can. It seems like I can tell that I might be wrong. Like who came up with what first by is the guitar following the bass more, or is there an obvious guitar line that the bass is brought into? So I don't what he brought to the table was just as much as anybody else. It just seemed to become less and less as their career went on, or career, whatever, their history. Yeah, I hate referring to
Rock and roll extravaganza.
Yeah.
Term you're looking for.
I always just hate referring to music as a career.
Yeah. Are you missing your
He's-
daughter's recital?
No, it doesn't start for another half hour.
Oh.
And that guy's coming out. It should be here like in the next 10 or 15 minutes to move the tape machine, which I'm probably going to see if you guys want to help.
Yeah. No, it's
Oh,
no
yeah.
problem.
It really weighs 600
Yeah,
pounds.
it's like 500 pounds.
Wow.
It's a pretty big machine.
All right. Yeah, I'll help
Nice.
with that. What would you say personally for you? Actually, maybe you can answer this both ways. Personally, and then just more broadly, like culturally or whatever. What was Carp's legacy? How would you sum up their impact on music in general, locally, maybe nationally, and on you as a musician and someone who listens to music?
Excuse me. I don't think that they ever really had a chance to personally, or not personally. I mean,
We should start with Carp. Sorry.
all right, sorry. I mean, Carp's impact on me personally was just. I mean, they're friends of mine. I mean, I loved watching them do something and watch them grow from being just really crappy, heavy band that didn't really seem to know what they were doing to writing one of the best records that I've ever listened to. Self-titled or whatever. But you know, nationally, I mean, I know that there's like people all over the place that love them, you know, but they didn't really tour enough to impact that a ton of people, like personally, like in concert or at a show or whatever, you know. Locally, they had a huge impact because everyone in this town that was around at that time loves Carp. You know, loved him from the beginning, even. But I don't know.
Yeah, describe those Fire Bell shows.